Tom, I can hear you all saying, didn't we just have a major sale video for Steam? Yes, but consider second sale, this time with snow. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Today, we're talking about some of the insane deals that you can get from the Steam Winter Sale 2025.
Are you ready for a miracle?
Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my constant coverage of all the just insane numerous sales that we have on Steam for our turn-based strategy, RPGs, and all the derivatives thereof that we all enjoy so much, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. A couple of caveats before we start on this one. First of all, I don't need anyone being pedantic in the comments. If it is a turn-based, a strategy, an RPG, or a tactics title in some combination thereof, there's a chance that it will be showing up in this video today because there's a lot of crossover in the different types of systems and gameplay feel that these games can have, even if the overall scope of them is wider than just a turn-based tactics title. If you don't like it, I won't be able to hear you over the sound of all these thick savings. Second of all, this sale is running through January 5th of 2026 at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard, 1 p.m. Eastern, and then convert to whatever time zone you're in if you're somewhere in the middle of the US or elsewhere in the world. Does that mean that every single one of these games will be on sale for that length of time? Not necessarily. Sometimes the sales run longer for individual titles, sometimes they run shorter. So, if there is something that you hear about in this video today that you are very interested in going and picking up, make sure you do so ASAP, because there's a possibility that if you wait, it won't actually be on sale for the duration of the sale. Third, we are talking about a massive number of games today. Not 10, not 15, depending on how you count it. Over 30 games, because boy howdy, there is a ton of stuff that is on sale right now, and most of those games are on sale for a ridiculous discount. This is one of the better Steam Winter Sales I've seen in quite a while, and it's a great opportunity to pick up a bunch of really good titles. Fourth, as always, I do endeavor to only recommend games that I have played or at least have some experience with via streams of people that I've watched or personal recommendations from friends or the like. There are a few in here that I have not played but are very well received and regarded in general. I will call out when I have not played something specifically. If there's a particular type of game that you are interested in, I have things broken up into a few loose categories. You'll be able to find links for those different sections of the video in the description and in the play bar. Generally, we're looking at like Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem Likes, then like XCOM Likes, and then more undefinable sort of stuff at the tail end. Things that definitely fall within the genre, but maybe don't have like a overall category that they fit into. They're a little too unique, or they're just the only example of their style that I have in the video. Since there are so many games, we're not going to go as in-depth on each individual one as I usually do, just basically hitting what the title is, what the game is, what its price is, and moving on with a little bit of gameplay there if I can fit it in, because I don't want this video to be like 45 minutes long. With all those disclaimers and explanation out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. First off, we have our big section of FFT and FE Likes, starting with Astral Throne. This is one that I've recommended before. I have played it on the channel and covered it decently extensively, and it is one that I highly, highly recommend. It is currently on sale for 55% off. That's $8.99 US. And if you're looking for a very strong tactical title with a more retro PS1, almost kind of RuneScape-y aesthetic at times, that has major roguelike aspects while also being a weird blend of FFT and FE in the way some of its gameplay systems work, especially of interest being the leveling system that makes for very unique character builds as you go. This is an excellent one to pick up. You do definitely need to be into the retro aesthetic, but if you are, or you just don't really mind your visual aesthetic in general and are more about the gameplay systems, there is a ton to sink your teeth into here, and as far as indie titles go, it is one of the better ones that I have played in 2025. Next up, from indie darlings to absolute classics of the genre, we've got Disgaea PC and Disgaea 2 PC. Disgaea 1 is 65% off for $6.99, and then Disgaea 2 is 80% off for $3.99. Now, I know the Disgaea series is an extremely beloved franchise. I have only got direct experience with the first game. I do really enjoy the first game, need to get around to playing all of the rest of them, but I have a lot of friends and members of the community who have played these games very extensively and do highly recommend them. So, if you're looking for a tactics game with a lot more of a comedic anime sort of twist to it, then these are definitely ones that you're going to want to pick up, especially if you're in for tons and tons of grinding and character customization, as that pretty much seems to be the main draw of any and all of these titles. Considering you can get the both of them for around $10 US, and that is a lot of time you'll be able to sink into them, it's a pretty damn good deal. Moving our tactics from very comedic to extremely serious, we have all 3 games in the Banner Saga franchise. Each game is 85% off, making it a mere $374 US, so you can get the entire franchise for $10, and that is a phenomenal deal for what is a very deep, very intense, and very emotionally impactful tactics series that's heavily based on, I believe, Viking lore, based on the giants and whatnot that exist in it. It's not my most well-known area of mythology, so my apologies for that. But this is a franchise that places very high importance on every single tactical decision that you make, using a lot of different types of armor systems and attack facings to make it very vital that you pay attention to where you and the enemy is positioned, while also having some sort of base mechanic and almost like Oregon Trail-esque traveling systems that makes for a very unique experience in the genre. I've played the first game. I've not played the second or third. The third is, I guess, a little less well-received than the first two, but I mean, again, when you're getting it for barely over $350, it's not a bad one to pick up, and it's still good from everything that I understand. Based on just the first one alone, it's definitely a franchise to check out if you've not seen it before, and the art style is beautiful. From the frozen north to the sand-blasted deserts full of mecha, we have one that I know is a little bit contentious in the community. It is Front Mission First Remake. This is the only Front Mission game that I have played, and this iteration of it is the only one that I have played. And I understand that the second and third remakes were much more poorly received, but First Remake is pretty dang good, I gotta say. Sure, I imagine there's stuff from the classic versions that if you are an old head who knows these classic versions, you will miss, but as a newcomer to the franchise, it was a damn good time. And considering it is currently 75% off, making it only $8.75 and bringing 2 full campaigns with a bunch of replayability, it's certainly a good pick if you want some mecha tactics action in your life. It won't be the only option in this video for some mecha action, but if you want something a little bit more classic old school tactics, this is a very fun one, and I do enjoy the level of customization that the mechs offer. Next up is one of my absolute darlings in the franchise, one that I cannot recommend highly enough, even though it is in its own way divisive due to its mechanics. It is Triangle Strategy. Triangle Strategy is once again on sale, and I once again will absolutely recommend any and all fans of the genre to pick it up. It is 60% off, making it $23.99 US. And I mean, if you want a game that you can sink your teeth into and have a real challenge with over potentially hundreds of hours of playtime, depending on how deep into the branching storylines you want to get, this is an extremely good option for you. If you, like me, are an old head who grew up with Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, then you're going to see a lot of callbacks and similarities to those games, as it was obviously made by people who grew up with them and love them as well, while still being its own thing with its own unique mechanics, a beautiful art style, and what is, to me, an extremely compelling story that actually makes you need to care about what choices you're making so you can get the characters and direction in the story that you want. If you've been turned away from it before by people disliking how much story and discussion there is, but you're still curious about it, this is a good price to pick it up. You may just find that's one of your favorites of all time. Next up, we have our first title that I have absolutely zero experience with whatsoever, other than hearing good things about it over the last couple of years since its release. It is Crawl Tactics, which just received its final major update. This is a very cool looking little indie title that almost reminds me of like Roller Coaster Tycoon in its presentation, but seems to have a very nice amount of customization, branching paths. It is a roguelike, so if that's not your thing, well, I don't know what to tell you, but I definitely want to pick this one up for myself, do some base building, do some tactical combat, start new runs, and do it all over again. You can currently get it for 30% off, making it $13.99 US, and from what I've seen from Steam reviews, it is a very well-received game, even with its final update. If you're looking for something new, this might be one to check out. Next, we have another indie title that probably needs no introduction, seeing as how it's actually been quite a few years since it was released, and is one of the forerunners of the actual indie FFT-like genre, which has become way more populated recently. It's Fellseal Arbiter's Mark and its DLC, Fellseal Arbiter's Mark Missions and Monsters, both of which are extremely well received. You can get the base game for 85% off, making it only $4.49, and you can get the DLC also for 85% off, making it $1.94. And for a game that is this packed with content, with this level of character customization, and just overall tactics fun that you can have, even before you get the DLC, which I've not personally played myself, but is also very well received apparently, then you can certainly do worse than like $6. The devs at Six Eyes Studio definitely seem to know what's up and are absolutely people who grew up with the genre and when it was a much more limited scene than it is now, and I'm very excited to see what they have on the horizon with some of their new games. So if you're looking to get into what their style is before those new titles begin to drop, then consider picking up Fell Seal and diving in. It is a very good time. We're keeping it rolling with the indies for now. We have to talk about King's Vein. Now, I'm not super experienced with Rad Codex, the developer behind King's Vein, and a number of other turn-based strategy and tactics titles, but I have played a good amount of King's Vein and absolutely love it. It's currently 40% off for $11.99 US, and if you're looking for a title that has a lot more world building and customization in terms of how you actually approach fights, almost in like a, I would say Metroidvania-esque kind of way, given how different abilities that you unlock for your different jobs actually allow you to traverse the world in different ways, different items can allow you to get around, different traps and puzzles, approach combats from more advantageous positions and the like. There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on here. The jobs themselves are also extremely unique. There's a lot of options here that you've never really seen in other games, or at least I haven't seen in other games. It's a very unique title that should feel very familiar to anyone who knows the genre well, but will also introduce more than enough new stuff to make it stand on its own and keep you engaged for potentially multiple playthroughs. Now, after talking about all these FFT likes, and occasionally some Fire Emblem likes, we had to talk about the GOAT. That's right, Final Fantasy Tactics The Evilise Chronicles is now on sale, what I believe is its first major sale since its release a few months back. It is only 20% off, so it is still $40 US for the base version. However, it's Final Fantasy Tactics The Evilise Chronicles, man. I mean, I put out how many videos about it. We covered it how extensively on the channel. I've sung its praises from on high endlessly. Like, if you've not played FFT and you've been interested to get into it, since seeing my coverage, other people's coverage, the general buzz about it, it did win Best Strategy and Tactics title at the Game Awards. That should tell you something about the quality on hand here. Then this is your first really good opportunity to pick it up on a decent discount. There's really not much more I can say about it that I haven't already discussed extensively on the channel. If you love turn-based, you love tactics, and hell, if you're just a Final Fantasy fan and you haven't played this, you owe it to yourself to pick it up now and give it a shot. And hey, there'll be a lot of content that you can watch if you need some intro guides or anything else right here on the channel, Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, go check them out. But of course, real needs to recognize real, and if we're going to sing the praises of FFT from on high, then we need to acknowledge its father that came before and helped pave the way for its success while still being a phenomenal title in its own right. It is Tactics Ogre, now reborn. Again, I adore Tactics Ogre. I've covered Tactics Ogre Reborn extensively here on the channel. There are many people who are old veterans of the genre who will say to this day that they prefer Tactics Ogre Reborn over FFT, and I totally get it. It is a phenomenal title, and again, if you have not checked this one out, then you need to if you love this genre. It is currently 60% off for $20 US, an absolute steal for the amount of fun, the amount of tactical combat, and the sheer girth of content you can pluck from this one's lovely little carapace. That sounded so terrible. I don't know where my brain was going with that one. You'll be able to get a lot of content out of this one. How about that? All right. I absolutely adore Tactics Ogre Reborn, and I guarantee most of you will as well. For the last of our FFT or Fire Emblem likes, we have Gales of Nayeli. It is currently 30% off for $17.49 US, and this is a very deep and very content-packed Fire Emblem style game with very strong inspiration from the native peoples of Canada, as well as D&D, techno-futurism, modern aesthetics. There's a lot going on here, and I really can't say much more about it without getting into major spoiler territory, and considering that I've been slowly working on a review of this game that is very positive in and of itself, I don't want to get too much into it here. However, if you are looking for a very mechanically dense and very content-rich Fire Emblem style game while you wait for maybe a new mainline entry of the series to come out, then you can certainly do worse than Gales of Nayeli. I absolutely love it. You can sink your teeth deep into this one. It has a ton of replayability, so many different class trees you can follow, a ton of interesting weapons. It is a very entertaining title. Now, moving on from our FFT and Fire Emblem likes, we have the XCOM likes, and there are actually quite a few of these. I didn't really realize just how many different variations of the XCOM formula people have done at this point, to say nothing of, XCOM itself. And there's a ton of great deals on these if you're looking to branch out from your Fire Emblems and your FFTs, or you're a big fan of the XCOM style of genre, and you just hadn't heard of some of these. There's a lot of juicy stuff here for you. Of course, starting right off the bat, we do have to talk about the progenitor itself, XCOM Enemy Unknown, the reboot of the franchise that brought it much more into the light for the gaming community. The first game is 80% off for only $6. It's DLC / expansion, because really the XCOM games are very good about having full-fledged expansions for their new content. Is also 80% off, $5.99, and you can get both iterations of the game and all of its DLC add-ons for, again, 80% off for only $10. Just this alone is so much gameplay. And the original XCOM games are still preferred by a lot of people to 2, even though 2 is absolutely phenomenal. We're going to talk about that in a second. If you only played 2 and you want to see what the original fuss is all about, definitely pick these up now. If you're just looking to get into the XCOM genre, this is a very good one to try. The modding scene is great for this one. The game design itself is extremely tight. It is a very, very replayable experience. Of course, that is not all. We do have XCOM 2, War of the Chosen, its expansion, and all of its DLC, also all on sale. XCOM 2 is 90% off, making it only $6. War of the Chosen, its major expansion, which I highly recommend if you're going to play XCOM 2. There's really no reason to not play it with War of the Chosen. It significantly improves the game. Also 90% off for only $4. You can get the entire XCOM 2 bundle with all of its DLC for 72% off, making it only $8. And if you want the XCOM Ultimate Collection bundle, which also includes Chimera Squad, which we'll talk about in a second, you can get the whole thing, every game and every piece of additional content for it, for 74% off, making it only $19.62. If you literally only want to play XCOM games for the next, 2 to 3 years, you could certainly do worse than paying $20 for all of it. Again, that does also include XCOM Chimera Squad, the sort of weird spin-off sequel-ish game. It's not really XCOM 3. It's something that they did where they're exploring a lot of different types of gameplay systems, including playable aliens, which is super fun. You can get that either on its own for 85% off, making it only $2.99, or again as part of the bundle. It's definitely the weakest of the franchise, but it's certainly a ton of fun in its own right. In particular, the breach and clear mechanics that they added are one of the biggest draws for it. It's just unfortunate that you can't really do custom characters. They're all specific named characters, but it's still a very fun experience overall. Now, giving XCOM itself a rest for a little, let's talk about some games that have clearly taken inspiration from it and are running with it to do their own thing. First of all, Phantom Brigade. We talked about Phantom Brigade in the previous video. It is on sale once again for 50% off, making only $15. And as I mentioned previously, I've not yet played this one for myself, though I absolutely do need to, because God only knows I'm a sucker for huge mecha combat and strategy combat. And from everything I've been hearing, especially with this new update, it is a must play for anyone who enjoys really any of those things. The mech customization itself looks awesome. The fact that you're actually able to plan out all your moves in advance and then execute and watch the carnage unfold is super cool. It's got a great visual style to it. If you're at all interested, there's really no excuse not to at only $15. Moving from giant mechs to, giant armored warriors, we have the first Warhammer game on this list, and trust me, it's not going to be the last, with Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. Now, yes, this is a CRPG, however, its combat is very clearly turn-based tactics and turn-based strategy, with a very obvious XCOM bent, with cover systems, a grid system, different types of weapons that need to be reloaded, etc., etc. I've been really getting into Rogue Trader recently after dabbling with it here and there over the years. It is an absolutely excellent experience just from a tactics and strategy standpoint. And then if you want to have a really deep, rich CRPG experience with customizable characters and all sorts of different explorable environments, and just really enjoy that 40k aesthetic, you can do much worse than paying a mere $20, 60% off for this phenomenal title. If you want to get all the DLC for it, that whole bundle is also 60% off for $40. And that's a good deal. These are big honking games. Continuing on with the 40k goodness, we've got Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, currently 80% off for $8.99 US. If you want a much more strictly XCOM turn-based tactics experience without all of the additional CRPG nonsense attached to it, then Chaos Gate is where you're going to want to go if you want that flavor to be 40k. Taking on the role of the Grey Knights, you have to travel all around the galaxy, taking on different missions, preventing the spread of Grandfather Nurgle's rot, and it could definitely be a very difficult game, sometimes almost painfully so, but if you want some 40k XCOM style goodness and you don't mind maybe turning the difficulty down a little bit, it is just a great tactics spectacle. And sometimes we don't always need to be actually cutting our teeth on things. We just want to romp through and slaughter some cultists, you know? Next up, we have Other Side, and this is one of the only games on the list that I have no real experience with whatsoever, but it looks super interesting. I've had my eye on it for quite a while. Again, this is another XCOM style game, but with a very stylish, I don't even know how to describe it, like kind of dark, modern, gothic aesthetic. I kind of imagine if you had like Nier Automata and it was set in Sin City or something along those lines. I don't know. It's just, that's the feeling that I get from it. It's very evocative in its style. And considering it is currently 90% off for only $2.99 US, not a terrible pickup. So if you've not checked the title out before, I mean, $3 ain't bad to have a potentially very good time. We had a quick detour out of 40K, but don't worry, we're jumping straight back into it now with Warhammer 40K Mechanicus. Mechanicus is, I believe, the first XCOM like that was made for the franchise, and Mechanicus 2 is well on its way. So if you want to be able to get into that when it comes out, Mechanicus 1 is absolutely one to pick up. It is currently 88% off for $3.59. Very specific, not entirely sure why that's the number that they went with, but they did. And if you have seen any chatter or discussion or gameplay online, you'll know that Mechanicus is an extremely strong title. I've watched gameplay of this one. I have not yet played it for myself, but I am absolutely chomping at the bit to get into it. Really, the only reason that I haven't jumped straight on it is the AdMech faction is not one of my favorite factions in 40K, but I definitely need to play it now because there's going to be a playable Necron story in Mechanicus 2, and like, oh, that's my jam. Either way, though, it is a very strong tactical title, again, with a 40K flavor, and if that's what you're looking for, then this is definitely a way to go for it. We're moving out of our XCOM likes and finally getting into the more miscellaneous assorted options at the tail end of the video here, all of which are still very strong options in their own right. And we're starting off by talking about Darkest Dungeon 2 because yes, I don't care what any of you say, it is a turn-based strategy title even if you're not on a grid. I've been very back and forth in my opinion over Darkest Dungeon 2 throughout the years. However, with its latest Kingdoms update that has a little bit more of the traditional Darkest Dungeon 1 style to it, I'm a lot more positive on the game in general because there's a way that I can play it that I prefer. Either way, it is an extremely well-designed game in general with phenomenal art, etc. And for $12.39, that is a 69% discount, it is a great time to pick it up. Conversely, if you want to get the entire game, as well as all of its currently released DLC, you can pay $27.35, that is a 54% discount, to get everything involved in that. And I will absolutely say, there is a ton of great content in that DLC that really expands the game. I would highly recommend it. I do have all of it. If you've bounced off of the game before or maybe curious about the Kingdoms mode, or you've just never played a Darkest Dungeon title before, this is a good price point and a good time to get into it, and I do recommend checking it out. Next up, we have Songs of Conquest, and I've always had a hard time really describing what style of game this is. I would say it's kind of like 4X. It's very Heroes of Might and Magic, Age of Wonders in its overall world design, but then you've got like your grid-based combat going on. I don't know, but that's why it's in our miscellaneous section here, because whatever you would describe it as, it is a very good game. It is currently 75% off. That is $7.49 US, and is frankly one of the most beautiful, artistically unique indie games I've played in the last few years. It's worth checking out on that merit alone. Combine that with town building, world exploration, treasure finding, and sometimes very, very brutal tactical combat. You'll absolutely get your money's worth for Songs of Conquest, and it's also getting constant free and paid DLC, so there will be a lot more content to come if you decide to get into it now. Good news, everyone, we're back to 40K, but this time make it 4X. This is Warhammer 40K Gladius, Relics of War. I mean, what can I say? It's Civilization, but Warhammer 40K. It does, of course, have its own nuances and interesting things going on, but that's really the only selling point you need, in my opinion, other than the fact that it is currently a whopping 90% off. That's only $4 US, to say nothing of the fact that it has an absolute shed load of DLC, most of which is on sale currently. I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend buying the entire bundle when you're first getting into the game, as even when it's 42% off, that is a whopping $103.83. So maybe take it a little slow if you're just getting into this one for the first time, but if you like 40K, you like 4X games, I mean, there's really no reason for you to not try this one out. We're approaching the end here with the last few titles that we need to discuss, and the first of those will be The Last Spell. This is one that's come up in a few of these videos, and which I've covered fairly extensively on the channel in the past as well. It is currently 60% off, that is $9.99 US, and is one of the only games on this list that really takes a major focus on defense. As a wave-based defense mission style game, you'll be spending your time during the day building up your traps, your walls, your encampment facilities, buying items from the shop, leveling your heroes, and then at night you will be fending off absolutely massive hordes of magically empowered undead that want to destroy your town and send you back to the beginning of a run. The music in the last spell is an absolute banger. The gameplay systems itself are extremely compelling. I, for one, kind of have a hard time getting really stuck into a roguelike, but last spell always gets its grips in me whenever I decide to come back to it, and for only $10, it's certainly a good time to try it. If instead you maybe know the game or you just want to get everything all in one fell swoop because it looks awesome, you can also get its 2 currently released DLCs alongside the full game for a 50% discount of $20 total for the whole shebang. Now we have one that has a very, very different tone from many things on this list, but especially the last spell, and funnily enough, one that I've never really talked about on the channel before. It is Pit People. Pit People is currently 60% off. Again, that is $7.99 US, similar to last spell itself. And boy howdy, this one is an acid trip of a game. It's hard to even describe this one, but primarily its big draw is its co-op features. I played it very extensively with my buddy Eric back in the day before I even had the channel, and its combination of absolutely wackadoo off-the-cuff humor, strange, almost post-apocalyptic setting, but like also fantasy, and what can really be truly brutal combat, both in terms of its visuals and just how difficult the game can get. It is a riot if you have a buddy that you're going to play it with. I've laughed myself sick multiple times playing this one with Eric, so if you're looking for something a little less serious and a lot more laughs, Pit People is a very good pickup for you. Next up, and finally, our very last Warhammer 40k game on this list, because boy howdy, there's a lot of good 40k games nowadays. We've got Warhammer 40k Battle Sector. The best way to describe Battle Sector is like you're playing actual tabletop 40k, but video gamified. It's still turn-based. You're going to be moving around a map, taking objectives, dealing with line of sight, etc. But mechanically, this is the closest you're going to get to putting minis on the tabletop and rolling dice without like loading up Tabletop Simulator. You have to be really invested in actually getting into the mechanics and understanding how the game works before it's really going to start clicking for you. It is definitely a more technical game than a more standard tactics video game would be. But if that sounds like it's up your alley, or maybe interested in the tabletop and you've not checked out Battle Sector before, it is a very good option for you. It is currently 50% off. That is $20 US, and you can get all of its associated DLC, again, much like with Gladius, for 34% off, which is, again, an eye-watering $86.11 US, but there is a lot of cool stuff in there with different factions and maps and the like. And now for our final entry on this list, we're going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you here with Cobalt Core. This one is 50% off, $9.99 US, and I've not personally played it. However, I've watched a fair bit of it and had it explained to me by channel mod and community member Segno, who did some gameplay streams of it for myself and other folks in the Discord. And this is a really cute, fun game. Think something along the lines of FTL, but a turn-based card battler where you have to build your ship over time. And the ship-to-ship combat in particular in this game is a ton of fun. It's a very cute art style, it's a very fun concept, and for a 50% discount, if you're looking for something a little bit different and a little bit off the wall, maybe you're into card battlers or custom ship building, this is definitely one that I would recommend picking up. I've been intending to get it for myself for quite some time, as I did enjoy the gameplay that I watched of it from Segno, and I will probably be doing so now that it is on this sale. And that, my friends, is all of the games that we're going to be covering for today's video. Absolutely massive 30+ titles that should absolutely be able to keep you covered if you haven't played even some of them for potentially the rest of next year. I was absolutely blown away by just how many games there are on Steam now that fall into our genre, and how many of them are on such extremely strong discounts. There are over 5,000 titles that Steam classified as turn-based strategy or turn-based tactics. And while some of those are free-to-play slop or very anime games, if you know what I mean, many, if not most of them, are just extremely strong, passionately developed games. And of course, there is far more than I would be able to cover here. So, if you have a particular title that you know is on sale, that you absolutely adore and want more people to play, or if you've just been browsing through the sale itself and found something new that you want to inform people about, or there's just an insane deal that you feel like everyone needs to know, drop any and all of those in the comments as always, so people can find more great stuff to play, myself included, because I do find some titles from you guys in the comments on these videos. It's a good opportunity for the community to come together and share their love of the genre and make it a little bit easier for everyone to enjoy our favorite games. So make sure that you do let others know down there. For now, I'm going to wrap this one up here. So thank you all so much for watching. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Working on getting back to a normal-ish schedule here. I'm doing my best. So thank you all for being so patient with me. And until the next time, I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.